Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for the opportunity to present our case study this afternoon. As introduced, I am from the eThekwini Municipality, and just for some context, we are the third largest city in South Africa. Our land size is approximately 2,500 square kilometers, and we have a population of 4.2 million people. 68% of the land within the city is rural, and that's quite an important point when we consider the context of the digital twin. So essentially, the city wanted to transform the way that we do our planning, and we were made aware of the concept of the digital twin and the potential that it offered via our sister city agreement with Bremen, which is a city in Germany. We thereafter embarked on this exchange partnership that's been kindly funded by Engagement Global, which consists of Bremen helping eThekwini with the development of the eThekwini digital twin, and the eThekwini municipality then assisting our colleagues in Bremen to develop their version of what is our strategic hub. So the strategic hub, very quickly, is essentially a platform that we've created in the city that hosts a lot of the data sets in the city that have been analyzed and visualized so that they can be used for decision making. So the project commenced in September 2023, and it's scheduled for completion in June 2025. It also included knowledge exchanges where the Durban team went to Bremen and the Bremen team came to Durban so that we understand the context within which we operate. And I very quickly included some pictures of, sorry, let me minimize this, some pictures of what those working sessions looked like. This project is actually aligned to us achieving the municipal mandate, so it also contributes to achieving the strategies of all the levels of government, and it's aligned to SDGs 9, 11, and 17. I'm not going to go through the detail of this particular slide, but I've included it so that you can see that this digital twin is actually part of a broader digitization journey that the city is embarking on. It's spearheaded by the creation and implementation of a data strategy, which is work in progress, but this data strategy will underpin the success of all of the other data initiatives in the city. The potential benefits for eThekwini, some of which we are already seeing as we're building the twin. The first is that it enhances the way we do planning and it changes the way that we think when we are planning. The second is that it now provides a spatial view of the city when planning is being undertaken, including city infrastructure. So right now when planning is done, we don't take into account where our infrastructure lies under the ground. But more importantly, it helps us to consolidate municipal data sets for evidence-based decisions. I've listed some of the scenarios that we are looking at using for, but if I highlight just a few, we've actually been taken to court in some instances where buildings have been approved in the city for building purposes, and they've blocked the views of other buildings in the city. So we were taken to court for approving those development applications, and we actually lost the cases. With the digital twin, we're able to plot those buildings in advance to look at what the implications are going to be. Then when we look at disaster risk reduction, eThekwini has been victim to an increasing number of climate-related disasters in the last few years. In 2022, we had catastrophic flooding where we lost more than 400 lives. And the twin will then allow us to look at and use scenarios to model, for example, if a river overflows, which areas is it going to impact, etc. So that's quite critical. It will also allow for better monitoring of service delivery. And then the last two, looking at biodiversity tracking. So we can see what is happening to the environment within the city and the trends over time to look at where the initiatives we are implementing are being successful or not. And then, of course, pollution control. I have included very quickly what our digital twin looks like at the moment. It is not complete, but maybe one of the important points to note, and I will come to it when we get to the lessons learned. The reason I'm showing you this is that you can see that the city is typographically different to Bremen. We have different types of structures. We have the oceans as well. And we have a lot of rural land which has traditional housing on it. So it took us longer to build the actual digital twin because of the difference in the types of buildings. This is the slide that I wanted to concentrate on more than anything else, because I think this might be beneficial. So the lessons we learned from this process, colleagues, is that there were differences in the way that the coordinates are recorded in Durban versus Bremen. So we had to find workarounds to convert those coordinates such that we could build the twin. We had limited to no technical skills, and therefore capacity building was required. Luckily, it came through as part of this twinning agreement or this project. So the colleagues from Bremen are passing the skills on to us. Of course, we needed to customize for local circumstances, and that's what I was talking about, because the types of dwellings, typography, etc., is quite different between the two cities. There must be suitable organizational maturity levels. So in other words, we have to have leadership that's willing to use the tools that we are developing. Otherwise, any tools that are developed are not going to be sustainable. It requires suitable high-spec equipment, which we didn't initially have. And again, it was a stepping stone for us to build this twin. So we had to have more powerful servers and computers, etc. We needed more accurate GIS data. So whilst we were loading our GIS data into the twin, some of the things that we discovered is that, for example, if we take our high-rise buildings, the height that it shows is not actually accurate. So when you're looking at things like solar potential, etc., the inaccurate data actually impacts on what you're getting out of the twin. There needs to be a mindset or culture change. In other words, colleagues that are actually doing the work must be willing to operate it differently. If they don't, this is not actually going to be a sustainable tool that is being implemented. We need to identify and define accountability and ownership for our processes upfront. In other words, who is going to be responsible for developing the twin, who will provide the data, who will maintain, etc. And I think in the space of most cities, that is make or break. The tech-related decisions, example, licensing, are also quite critical. So are we going with open source, or are we going with licensed software for the development of things like digital twins? And then finally, these processes and tools need to be institutionalized to ensure sustainability. If they operate on their own as little silos, they no longer become sustainable, and they must therefore be included in municipal process. So all of these lessons that we learned are impacting on whether solutions are actually sustainable for transformation purposes. That was a very quick summary, colleagues. I'm going to end with some nice pictures of Durban, but that's essentially my presentation for this afternoon. Thank you very much.